हाँ कोपल मैडम गुड मॉर्निंग.
Good morning. Good morning.
Ajita ji, can you hear me?
Yes sir. Good morning sir.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm audible.
Yes sir. Yes sir.
You can hear me clearly, right?
Yes sir.
Okay. Take. Thank you. All right. You take your own time. I'm busy signing certificates, so not a problem. Just I've logged in. That's it. Okay. It's okay. Perfectly all right. Perfectly all right. No issue. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Canteen. National disaster management plan for the agriculture sector. So we have an IDM and my team, we were supporting them and we were interacting. There was a big team comprising a number of people from ICR system and also outside ICR system. And there also we realized that the post-harvest, I would say that after the crop is grown, the losses after that are also significant, but there has been quite inadequate mechanisms of assessment of these risks and also to address these kind of challenges. But we have seen that in the field after the crop is harvested, the damages, then during transport, during storages, during processing, and till it reaches to, I would say that to the dining table. There are a lot of challenges posed by climatic uncertainties and the various kind of disasters. And there, in fact, we also came to realize that even the non-climatic disasters are also a big challenge. For example, fire, for example, the earthquake, these kind of challenges are, for example, the other disaster challenges affecting the people who are engaged into post-harvest management, because when the trained human resources or skilled human resources are affected, certainly the crop post-harvest management of crop produce is also to be affected. So there are a wide range of challenges. These need to be first identified, and the vulnerability also need to be assessed, because in any kind of disaster risk reduction strategy, understanding of risk and vulnerability is very important. And then we evolve in developing capacities, developing technologies, improving techno-legal regime, also skill development in the people, and then also linking it with extension that how the people can be made aware to utilize these kind of technologies in simpler language, so that the farmers can understand and also demonstrate in the farmers field also. And where people are, and then in the food processing stages also. So I think there are important issues associated with this, and I must compliment to Dr. Kobar Gadeji for taking this initiative jointly with Dr. Kopal Verma. Dr. Sanayanbi, she has been the team of developing National Agriculture Disaster Management Plan. She is an agriculture engineer. So she has also contributed to this idea. So I'm looking forward to useful deliberations of this program. And almost 100 participants are likely to join this online training program. So that is a good indication that people have interest in the subject. Besides, this is also being uh, shared on YouTube, so a number of other audience will also take the benefit. Um, Once again, I must compliment to Assam Central University and more particularly the Faculty of Agriculture Engineering for taking this initiative. After the program is over, we'll try to identify the key lessons also, so that we can come out with the certain policy recommendations to improve the post harvest management with reference to the disaster related losses and damage. And maybe uh, I would suggest Dr. Kobergare that we can have a separate discussion after the program is over, to think of a knowledge compendium on this subject, because this subject is of very importance for us also. So let us also plan that the
Yes, sir.
speakers of this program, and we can also identify some other resource persons, because the post harvest the faculty in the ICR in the university in Punjab also, they had organized some programs. I think Dr. Kopal and Sanaya would recall. So then we should certainly come out with a knowledge compendium, because this subject is of utmost importance. And there are a lot of agro business issues also associated with this. Lot of losses of perishable goods are also there during disasters, during transport also. Like on Jammu Kashmir highway, a lot of damage to the food products are also there. So we should think of this, so that we can really help our people associated with the agricultural produce management for, and also in food processing, food management issues, to help reduce their risk. So thank you very much. Looking forward to the deliberations. Over to you for taking this agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Madam?
Very good morning to you all. I hope you can hear me. Uh,
Sir, yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Esteemed, yeah. Uh, uh, my esteemed organizers, Ajita ji, Chetan ji,
Namaskar, sir.
Professor Sethi, Namaskar. Gopal ji, Fatima ji, Anil Gupta ji. Very good morning to you all. Namaskar. It is
Namaskar.
indeed a pleasure getting an opportunity to organize yet another program from yet another organization with NIDM. I have been associated with NIDM from my previous organization also. From NIRD PR Guwahati, we conducted a couple of programs with NIDM, and I'm so happy to see those faces, meet my friends from NIDM again, and this time from Assam University. So it's a great thing that Assam University and NIDM both are conducting these programs, and these programs have very, very high relevance, especially when we look at the conditions of Northeast India. This agriculture, infrastructure, and disasters. As such, Northeast is infrastructure deficient region, and basically dependent on primary sector. And also, this region is very much prone to disasters of various kinds. We all know that Northeast states fall within this seismic zone 4 and 5, and then flood is a regular feature here. And in some of the areas, we are witnessing a drought-like situation also. In Sikkim, I experienced that some of the villages are almost, have dried up and they are facing drought-like situation. So it's a very, very, important, high time that we think of some kind of
ये मिश्रा जी के पास बीपी की मशीन है क्या?
Right kind of strategies. Right kind of strategies to negotiate with some unforeseen kind of situations. And as I learned that NIDM is already working or has already developed this National Agriculture Disaster Management policy for the government, and I'm sure that will take care of many aspects that are affecting our agriculture. And we need to be prepared for all these things. We cannot just take these things for granted. I think it's a regular thing, and we must be fully prepared. We must take some initiatives to ensure that we are prepared. We must develop proper strategies, and we must have some mechanisms to prevent and mitigate disasters so that their effect is minimized. And then how do we respond to situations when disasters have occurred? So all these things, I'm sure we say 4 phases of disaster management, and of course recovery. So we must have right kind of plans in place to ensure that we successfully manage these 4 phases. We have right kind of plans to manage these 4 phases of disaster management. Primary sector, which now of course is not contributing very highly to GDP of the country, but many industries, even secondary and tertiary sector, also depend very large extent on the primary sector, the agriculture sector and side activity. So if this sector suffers because of the disasters and all, our economy will suffer. Our economy suffers in a big way. So maybe I'm not the right person to talk on the scientific aspect. Our agriculture engineering experts are there, scientists are there who can develop right kind of crops which is not much affected. Maybe our agricultural engineers, they can come out with right kind of equipment, machines that help in handling disasters, especially affecting agriculture areas. So I'm sure this 3-day program, we are very fortunate to have some good resource persons from agriculture side and as well as from disaster management side. And I'm sure this synergy will definitely help us in coming out with some good solutions. And we in future we will be able to handle these disasters very nicely. And a lot of good things have happened. In fact, Odisha has shown a very good example after that super cyclone. We never suffered those kinds of problems again in recent cyclones and other kind of disasters, because that super cyclone basically helped us to wake up. It was a kind of wake up call for all of us to be ready for this kind of disasters all the time. And NIBM, NDRF, all these organizations have come up with wonderful, plans that are helping us. And loss of property, loss of human life, loss of other kind of things is minimized because of these initiatives. And I'm sure this training programs will further strengthen our resolve to manage these disasters safely. So I wish this 3 days program a great success. I congratulate the Department of Agriculture Engineering. I congratulate Dean, this School of Technology, Professor Sethi. I congratulate Ajita ji and Chetan ji and team NIDM for this wonderful initiative, and I wish this program a great success. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to associate myself with this training program. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir has not joined, I think, madam. So Kopal ma'am, right now?
Sir won't be able to join
Yes,
his another
yes.
meeting.
So we'll move forward with Sethi sir. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Ajita madam. Am I audible?
You are audible, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajiv Mohan Pan, respected Executive Director, Sri Taj Hussain in absentia, respected Program Director, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, distinguished experts from different premier institutes and NIDM, faculty coordinators, my dear faculty, participants, staff, and students. A very good morning to all of you. Already we have listened from our Honorable Vice Chancellor and experts from the NIDM. And our coordinator also briefed the statistics of the disaster, what we have faced, and how it affects our economy. First of all, I would like to congratulate the coordinators and appreciate them, and also express our special thanks to National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs for collaborating and organizing this training program. Recently, unfolding the COVID-19 pandemic, which reminds us change is not only of the planned kind, but often triggered by sudden and unexpected events. Most of the years, agriculture sector in India, including the Northeast, are adversely affected by various natural and man-made disasters like landslides, earthquake, flood, cyclone, etc., which resulted huge economic losses and disrupt a people's livelihood. Such unintended consequences would be the new risks and threats to the business of the farm in agriculture system and food safety. Nowadays, we have the experience that researchers have focused on developing efficient processes and increasing productivity, and where one of the experts have already identified the post-harvest losses, where we have to focus our research. But much less research effort has been given into understanding what enables agriculture system to navigate unexpected changes. So we need to pay attention building resilience to infrastructure, which is crucial to reduce vulnerability to natural hazards. In this context, our Honorable Vice Chancellor also pointed out that National Institute of Disaster Management have been working and also developed a National Agriculture Disaster Management Plan for the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, who have taken the aim, the vision to strengthen resilience of farming community to deal with disasters and other uncertainties. NIDM has also set the roadmap and examples of agriculture specific preventions and mitigation measures, where the farmers can have the specific measures for crop and livestock diversifications, plant breeding for short cycle, crop resistant to drought, diseases and pest attacks, pest and disease control measures, water management, the target of doubling of farmers' income and age of living. These targets can be achieved by improving the risk scenario of Indian agriculture and protecting it from natural disasters through proper adaptation and mitigations. So, we have to find out, we have to search the approaches which will be suitable for getting the or for giving the more attention to the relations with the agriculture systems as well as the digitalization process from the farmer's point of view. With the digitalization, interconnected tools and the smart farming tools, we can gain precise information about the crop conditions, or we can plan farming practices. We can have the phenological detailed information regarding the phenological state of agriculture sciences and farmers' welfare, where we have kept our vision to explore agriculture specific preventions and mitigation measures. Last but not the least, it's our great honor and we are very much grateful for the distinguished participants and distinguished speakers for being here for this 3-day training program. For that, I would like to congratulate once again to the coordinators and the team of NIDM and expect to have more opportunities in future events and collaborating research. I wish this training program is a great success, and thank you all.
Thank you, madam. Am I audible, madam? Yeah. So very good morning to one and all. First of all, I would like to thanks to our authority, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor R.M. Pant Sir, for being present in this inauguration session from his busy schedule and for successful of this 3 days training program. Thank you, sir. Also, I would like to thanks to Taj Hassan Sir, Executive Director, NIDM New Delhi. Sir could not present due to his some technical problems and his busy schedule. But sir has sent us message with the blessing. So thank you, sir. I would like to thanks to Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, sir, Program Coordinator and Head ECDRM Division NIDM New Delhi. Sir has from his busy schedule, sir has joined for this inauguration session. Thank you, sir. And also thankful to you both, sir, for giving us opportunity to conduct 3 days online training program. I would like to thanks to Registrar Sir, Dr. P.K. Nath Sir, Finance Officer Sir, and other staff members from the administration to take up the early matter during this COVID time and for timely approval. Now my sincere thanks to Professor Ellen Setti Sir, Dean TSSOT, Anand Kanu Sir, Disaster Risk and Resilience Officer, Northeast UNICEF India, Professor A.G. Mode Sir, Professor and Head, Department of Agriculture Engineering, Dr. B.S.K. Dapoli, Maharashtra, Professor M.S. Sevda Sir, Department of Renewable Energy Engineering, CE PhD, Ranipul Gangtok, Dr. Kopal Verma, Saini Ma'am, Junior Consultant, NIDM New Delhi, Dr. Miss Fatima Ma'am, Young Professional NIDM New Delhi, Dr. Sweta Ma'am, Consultant NIDM New Delhi, Mr. Harshit Sharma sir, young professional, NIDM New Delhi. So to enlighten the all participants, I hope all deliberation will definitely benefited for the all participants, those who participated from abroad and India. We got good number of participants in this program. Approximately 240 participants they have registered, and at present, approximate 100 participants they have presented in this inauguration session. So thankful to one and all. Now my sincere thanks to our research scholar for helping us during this throughout the training program. So thank you one and all. After just 5 minutes, we'll go for the technical session. So thanking you one and all. Yes, yes.
No, I am here. Whenever you are ready. Yes. Thank you. Yes, I am ready. As long as you want.
Yes, yes, madam. We can go technical session, ma'am. We can start. Yes. Okay, madam. Sure, sure. Yes, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Ajita and the entire organizing team. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. By the time I ready my presentation, let me do an honest admission here that I am not a particular uh, expert per se or even a person of knowledge on this field, that is Agri-Systems. But definitely I would like to link my session for setting the context for this entire training. And because I was given this opportunity to speak first as far as the technical sessions are concerned, so I would not particularly reflect the understanding of agriculture science here or agriculture engineering here, but I would like to set the context on the changing scenario of risks globally in the country and in particular in the state, and to that effect, how the agriculture sector per se is figuring, so that the following lectures, which are more from the experts from the field, can give a very robust linkage. So just give me a second if I can share my screen. I don't know why my presentation is not showing up here. Ditaji, can you kindly confirm if my video? Okay, great. Thank you. So and please remind me if I'm running late on time, so that I can customize it accordingly. And my request to all the participants, I know there are seasoned, experienced academicians and practitioners here in this field, and there may be certain things where there will be questions, clarifications, and even corrections that they our professional and personal life. The concept that a particular disaster is being very widely challenged, because often we are faced with disasters in different circumstances, even in places where there were limited history or no history of such disasters are happening and affecting our way of living. And this is just a scientific validation of the way we are going, because the trends are increasing and they are projected to increase further. Now, one of the eminent and one of the most, if I say that, most visible impact of disasters is measured in terms of economy. And when we say economy, it's measured in terms of how our per capita GDP is impacted when there are major disasters. So here also, if you look at the global trend, we see that there is a significant increase on disaster burden on the economy, on this exchequer, and that on the one hand increases the demand and the need for humanitarian assistance to the people affected, but at the same time pushes back all the development investments that have been made to considerably improve the indicators, the development indicators per se, in particular geographies, and in that all of us are going to bear the brunt of disasters, even if we are not directly impacted by it. Because if the economy by the disaster of human beings is impacted, if the average continues. Now, to this effect and to add to the worries, the recently released IPCC report, which came early this year, particularly the IPCC report on vulnerability, has made certain significant observations which are very crucial for all sectors to consider, and agriculture being one. So, as you see on the first line, it says that across sectors and regions, what is very visibly observed is that the vulnerable people and the systems are disproportionately affected. So people who were already vulnerable, who were already marginalized, actually are bearing the hardest brunt whenever there is an impact of a climatic extreme. And we know that within farmers there is the majority whom we consider vulnerable, whether they are marginalized farmers, whether they are laborers. I mean, there are different categories of vulnerable, group of people within the agriculture sector that you know of very well. What the report establishes is that these people who are already vulnerable, they have been impacted disproportionately, and they are likely to be impacted even more. There is also a rise in weather and climate extremes, and one of the significant impact of this rise is that earlier what we considered as communities having coping mechanisms we thought that traditionally certain communities have harvested certain skills and certain mechanisms which helps them to live with the extreme that they are exposed to. This report says that even those communities have been pushed beyond their ability to cope with because of the changing nature, the dynamic nature of the extreme events that are happening. This report also makes a reference to how much of the global, so the administration was very difficult because COVID also required people to be isolated and to be treated in separate infrastructure. And in flood, people were pushed from their houses and they also needed separate infrastructure. And in reality, what happened, the same school, which the same frontline workers who were already tired responding to the rising COVID, where many things were not known, where many situations were not known, they were again pushed to face the double face disaster of both COVID and flood interacting together. We also saw that there were certain unique events happening, like the Bagdan oil well bust, like the Umrangshu Dam incident, accidents happening as well during the time of COVID, where multiple climatic and non-climatic disasters interacted and created a complex scenario for the communities, for the administration, for the governance system to manage. What we also see, and the report points out, is that when we prioritize our interventions, we often focus on the immediate and near-term risk, because it's very difficult to justify within the administrative setup, within the existing governance settings, the relevance and the importance of investing on long-term disaster risk reduction or climate risk reduction measures. Because we are living in an era where immediate results are valued more, and this is because of the different complex situations that we live in, that we tend to value more which is very immediate and which can be achieved in a very short term, and it's very difficult to justify long-term investments. But again, near-term and near-term and short-term risk. So, and that will further derail of this. Any questions? By the time I handle the glitch, any? No questions? Either I am not clear, increasing the behavior and the other phenomena. What we will see is a gradual shrinking of space for agriculture, where what we will see is a gradual increase in food, food insecurity, and that would lead to a number of further challenges. For example, people migrating, unsafe migrations, rise in different kinds of social problems and challenges, where crop loss is definitely one component but not the sole component. The sector is influenced by different kinds of impacts of disasters. And some of the impacts, as I mentioned, as I have taken displacement as an example, some of the impacts are such deep-rooted that their connections, their interconnections, their complex connections are very difficult to comprehend, but yet they play a very significant role in defining the directions we are going as far as development is concerned. Now let us look at the overall risk ranking. When we see that our country's risk position is shaping every year, and in spite of we investing a lot on capacity improvement and expansion, we are still the 31st most risk-prone country in the world as per the informed risk. To identify our living or globally India's position, where approximately the children living in the climate risk-prone areas is very high. In that context, also another thing that I touched upon in my first slide itself is that when we were we were children, and we were growing up, and even our previous generations, there is a gradual change in situation, and more generations are exposed to disasters, and that's why more and more number of children are found to be living in a context where they are exposed to one or the other climate related risks. So these give you a figure of how much of the world's children are exposed to how much of different kinds of climatic and climatic disaster is. So, and we will relate to most of them, whether it is floods, whether it is vector-borne diseases, whether it is water scarcity, whether it is, even we see storms, though cyclones are different than storms. We see more of convective storms here, but even cyclones have very deep-rooted impact in the northeastern region, and we have seen how the cyclone that happened in the coastal West Bengal and Odisha actually impacted and led to a flood in Assam, early flood in Assam in 2020 when just COVID started. So we also see that heat waves, which were kind of not very relevant to the context of Northeast, now they are becoming very prominent. We are touching 40 degree, the threshold defined by IMD as for declaring heat wave. So we are touching 40 degree often now. We have been witnessing a heat stress induced mortalities in the recent times, and this is going to change significantly, and it will impact our living. It will impact our lifestyle. It will impact our livelihoods and the pattern we are used to. Air pollution definitely we see as a very major challenge. Often Guwahati is not talked about as a air pollution destination when compared to Delhi, Patna, and other cities across the country. But those who are in Guwahati, they would know that most of the time during winters, the weather, the pollution level is very severe in the state, both PM 2.5 and others. And that's a significant challenge that we will have to deal with even in the other northeastern states in the days to come, in situations which we were not prepared for earlier. So this is how we are climate. In 2020, it was published. This places the most important drivers. If we look at defining the vulnerability, we see that there are many, and particularly here, if we look at multi-dimensional indicators are at different levels. And that's why we are we are in the dark zone of vulnerability. Post this study, there was an independent study adapting to this framework and adding some other indicators to it, which was done by an independent think tank called CPEW, which actually placed Assam as the most climate vulnerable state of the country and put Dhemaji, Karimganj, and some other districts as the most vulnerable districts for climate extremes in the country. And that is a significant factor to consider, because we live in a context where we are not only exposed to the impacts, but the vulnerability which will drive the impact further is also not confined within a sector, with the agri sector, whether it is food security, nutrition, whether it is livelihoods. It is so interconnected that we can no longer afford to be confined within the boundaries of our sectors that we have defined traditionally. And that is why, if we have to make an impact, if we have to reduce vulnerability, if we have to contribute towards the resilience of communities and systems, each sector has to open up, each sector has to widen its scope, each sector has to understand the complexity, even when it is not directly contributing as related to it. I have already touched upon floods, and I think in the inaugural session, Dr. Adita was mentioning how far of the country is prone to flooding. What is important is to look at how far we in the state of Assam suffer flood damages. And in the slide here, if you see, I have just taken the cumulative figures for last couple of years. So we are increasingly witnessing a trend that there will be 3 years when there will be major flood, then there will be 1 year when the flood will be less in the state, and then again the next year the entire state will be affected. So by proportion, if we see what we have seen is that on an average in last 10 years, around 11% of our state's population was affected due to floods, if the state's cumulative flood memorandum is to be considered, and 11% is a significant proportion. So one is this. Second, we are seeing that 4.5 lakh people are seeking government relief camps. Now that compared to the affected population is very less, and that is also worrisome, because when you are in a government-run relief camp, certain elements of assistance, certain elements of safety and security is ensured. But when people are not resorting to working and others are increasing, because those spaces where people taking shelter are not regulated or are not actually being monitored so closely as a relief camp would have been. So we are seeing different consequences even within the humanitarian scenarios that are coming in. And when we look at also the wars in the nutritional anemia indicator per se, and among the adolescents, and that's very worrisome to understand why the nutrition anemia is not a consequence of one situation. It will be a consequence of combined situation. But why certain flood-prone districts like Dhemaji, like Majuli have figured so bad, and there has been a considerable jump between the two NFHS surveys as far as nutritional anemia among adolescents are concerned. The question arises whether it is due to repeated exposure to floods, repeated loss of land, crop loss, livelihood insecurity, food insecurity, compromise in fooding habits, and different maladaptations that are taking place. Those questions are yet to be understood, yet to be answered, and I think the academia definitely can look at those complex relations between the humanitarian impacts and the resultant development efficiency. Let's unpack as I move forward. Let's unpack. This is a global assessment report that was published in 2009. Comprehend. I thought that as an agriculture practitioner or agriculture engineering people, what would you look at when you look at this graph? So certain things I thought will automatically come to your eyes. And if you can look at agriculture technical limits, droughts, crop vulnerability, crop failure, even price hike, food insecurity, food riots. So and all others also contribute to the multi-crop failure, further lead to systemic failures like migration, food riots, political destabilization, civil unrest, more complementary. And risks are defined very difficult to comprehend, and we don't know. For example, we all know what the current crisis in Ukraine is leading to. We all know how the global economic thinking and energy on understanding the multi-dimensionality of will not necessarily address the requirement per se as we speak about. When we talk about agriculture in changing climate, and I don't think I'm the right person to highlight this, because you are, much more educated, learned on this subject compared to me. But as a practitioner for disaster risk reduction, when I see agriculture in the changing climate, what comes to my Honorable Vice Chancellor sir was mentioning that in this region we are still dependent on the primary sector. When agriculture per se suffers, the rest of the allied sectors also are bound to suffer, and that's what is happening predominantly in this region. We see that thousands of hectares of cropland affected and crop loss reported. We see that the prevalence of risk transfer mechanisms through insurance being very less. We see that the reliance and the dependency of the vulnerable communities on government assistance is still very high. So all climate related erraticity and impacts are bound to create very hassle-like conditions for the agriculture sector to thrive and grow. What I'm trying to make a point here is that in our conventional way of making agriculture sector productive to contribute towards the global sustainable goals of whether ending poverty or no hunger, I think without considering the the impacts of changing climate vis-a-vis the interaction with the non-climatic disasters, agriculture sector cannot survive, cannot thrive in the changing scenario that we are witnessing. Second point that I try to make here is that coping mechanisms. So whether the seasonality of cropping, whether the type or the choice of crop, whether the agriculture behaviors of community, all of them are now being significantly influenced. So can only scientific research on crop variety, for example, result in a change in agricultural behavior of communities. Whether they will adopt that modified or resilient kind of crop variety. If not, what kind of investment would be needed in making communities understand, in making communities adjust and adapt to the evolving demand of different types of agriculture practices? It's something that is very limitedly invested upon as far as academic research is concerned. And please enlighten me if that has changed in the recent years, which I am not aware of. We also have seen that in the race to promote good practices, if certain things in the immediate or near short term has yielded positive response, there is a rush to share that model as a good practice elsewhere, from one geography to another, without necessarily investing on the feasibility of that model succeeding in that context. And that is leading to a lot of maladaptations. So one example I have taken from one of the research studies, which is saying zero budget natural farming, and I don't know. I mean, you can guide me. That research claims that it is not conducive for all settings, and it cannot be just scaled up in all geographies based on success in certain locations. So how that is figuring in terms of contextual understanding of certain good practices are concerned. As I mentioned, diversification, alternatives, risk transfer solutions are still quite far and very limited reach. It seems the more far reach, the more hard to reach areas we go, the lesser they become accessible. While awareness and traditional coping practices that they have evolved over time, and they are trying to adjust it as far as the changing situation is concerned. And whereas we have also seen the IPCC report claiming that people are finding it difficult to cope using their coping mechanisms. On the other hand, we also see that there are scientific investments being made, alternative crops have been developed, diversification being promoted. But the far we go, the hard to reach context we reach, the more underdeveloped, the more unserved areas we go, we see that the reaches are, the reach of these things become very limited. And this is a change, because one thriving vulnerability in one corner of a particular geography will influence the vulnerability across the geography directly or indirectly. Looks like what are the different kinds of biophysical impacts, socio-economic impacts, and existing or possible adaptation measures that are being promoted. Again, as I said, I am not the right person to define whether they would depend on the context and relevance in a particular geoclimatic condition. And that is why it is very important. Livelihood sector can become resilient, and within the livelihood sector, definitely agriculture is the most predominant one as far as rural livelihoods are concerned. And as we have discussed, the study also finds that disasters like floods, sand casting, erosion have influenced the cropping season itself. So different kinds of impacts are being observed. Have seen situations where sand casting have made people forcibly to choose a cash crop compared to
And how does that help us in disaster management or disaster risk reduction, what we call DR? First, my previous speaker has wonderfully explained everything, but for the sake of the participants, if someone has joined right now, I would like to mention that it is well known now, it is an accepted fact, and there is no more debate on this, that climate is changing and with a very fast pace. So if we are not able to competent enough to keep pace with that change, then we are going to face a lot of difficulties in all sectors, be it agriculture, be it other livelihood options, anything. So we are facing higher average temperatures everywhere in the on this earth, and variability in precipitation. So how variability is? Variability means either we are receiving a lot of water within a very short span of time, or we are not receiving enough water, which is expected or which used to be the normal situation earlier. And also with the melting glaciers, temperatures are rising, so of course glaciers are also melting. With the melting glaciers, we are getting sea rise, so that is another problem. So sea level rise is a big issue, because that is going to sink all, not all, but most of the coastal areas by 2050. That is the future projection that IPCC is giving for long now. So to understand the situation, many reports are coming up from IPCC sites, and they are raising alarms again and again. So what we can do is we need to adapt ourselves, because we can't really stop the disasters, but what we can do is we can increase our awareness, we can increase our adaptability, and then we can better arm ourselves for better mitigations, so that the risk of the disaster is reduced. So if you know that disaster is going to happen, what you can do is you can save yourselves. Okay, so you can think of the ways those can save you, those can save your property, those can save your livelihood options, especially if you are dependent on the primary livelihood options. So basically we need to think of reducing the threat to our livelihood and to ensure the food security, because in India at least, or in many of the developing countries, food security is still a big issue that we need to address. So for all the concepts that we talk about, adaptation or disaster risk reduction, we actually try to maintain a balance in the economic growth. So balance means basically the sustainable development, because development is obvious, you cannot stop it, but then we have to ensure that we are doing sustainable development, because sustainable development also get all already missing. But that decreased amount of thing is, at that point of time we did not have the procedure for proper transportation to take your material to the market. At that point of time there was no proper distribution in the entire India, and also we did not have proper place to keep our food grains safe. So that used to be the problem. So storage and distribution, all those issues were there at that point of time. Later on, these problems were taken care. So during the third 5-year plan, the main objective of the plan was to increase the agricultural production, because earlier we faced shortage, and we also wanted more production were started in this time. And also the green revolution that we saw introducing some new concept to ensure that we are getting enough agricultural product. And now, and now also, last month also I visited Sikkim. There we were conducting a training program there from different states, so they were also discussing their issues related to climate change and all. So these all these initiatives have helped a lot. In 11.5, ensure food grain for us, for ensuring our future food security, and to help other people. Most important thing. So mission, National Horticulture Mission, National Mission on Oil Seeds and Oil Palm, and National Mission on Agriculture Extension and Technology, National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture. So these are the interventions. Now I will come to the policies and schemes will not be able to ensure the food security for future. So in 2007 itself, we were thinking of proper use of information and communication technology, agriculture and allied sector rejuvenation. So this also came in 2007. And Government of India has launched this program. So earlier it was known as Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. So this was, for UTs, 100% funding was coming from central government, and for the rest of the states it is 60-40. So 60 from central government and 40% from storage, market facilities. These are very important. We all know that our farmers are growing so many things, but then artists such as you all might be knowing that now kind of chemicals are available in the market. Those you apply in the roots of the your whatever you are cultivating. So it retains there in the root area, and it has immense holding capacity. So it can increase the water holding capacity of that root area to 200%. So even if some few rainfalls are there, it can hold that water for the needed period, a proper time. So it can hold the water for 2-3 months. So that packaging, labeling, branding, because those are very important. Suppose you are growing organic products. Suppose now it is going to some countries, they should value these things. So we have to Professor Gupta sir was mentioning approach, and many people were benefited from. What people were doing is, you have incentives for your fertilizer, and you are simply using fertilizer wherever it is needed, not needed, whatever fertilizer. The technology and also money and effort, everything. So this also helps in increasing the capacity building of scientists who are involved into these sectors and other stakeholders, and ultimately to bring resilience to agriculture. Farmer welfare, it was their initiative to prepare this plan. So this plan will help you save your field from all these 34 hazards. So this is really important. This is freely available. You can search in internet, you can get it, do read it. This is a very comprehensive plan, and this is a wonderful initiative that was taken jointly by Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfares and National Institute of Disaster Management. So this is really wonderful. But now we know that we have few gaps in our systems, though we have introduced ample amounts of policy. You get this variety in Kerala. So they are using this native variety for their cultivation. The importance of these varieties, this can withstand immense amount of salinity and also the water. So even if water is there, that is no harm to that variety. And also what they are doing is, since it is water resistant, so what is happening in that water, even if stagnant water is there, they are doing some kind of small fisheries, whatever is possible at that period of time. So they are getting benefits from two ways. They are also cultivating the rice, along with that fisheries is also there. So that actually helps improve the livelihood options. So we can think of farm mechanization, but think about the small and marginal farmers, and see that you are going to implement in say Northeast. That same policy cannot work in Rajasthan, or the policy that you are going to implement in some of the northern plain, that should not be the case for the coastal areas, because everywhere problems are different, scenarios are different. So location specific policies are really important, and we need to evaluate, like we are implementing some climate smart agricultural policies. We need to ultimately you know uh, evaluate that we are implementing, but what are the results, and depending on the results we should modify our policies or modify our interventions that we are doing. So all this, whatever I have talked today, is there in this publication. You will get it online. Thank you so much for your patient hearing, and thank you Assam University for giving me this opportunity to talk on this platform today. And also congratulations to Dr. Gopal and Assam University for organizing such a wonderful training program.